guys, Cameron with CPM Reviews here, and I had Spider-Man on the brain, and I was trying to think, what would I want for the third Spider-Man movie for the MCU? So I made a list of 5 things that Spider-Man must have and why it felt like home when I came up with the list. And we're gonna get started right now. First of all, I want to thank you guys for clicking on this video. It means a whole lot to me. If you could do a few things though, there's a thumbs up button down there. If you could click that, it raises the visibility of this video as well as my channel. Also, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, click that subscribe button. And if you want to know as soon as I put anything on my channel, click the notification bell. You'll know as soon as I upload. So, as I said, I was thinking about the next Spider-Man movie and what I would want from a trip to the theaters whenever they eventually open up. And I didn't want it to be too long, so I came up with 5 things. And I'm gonna go through them down the list. Number 1, I want this Spider-Man to stay his web-slinging butt in New York. I know that John Watts put him in Washington, D.C. for Homecoming, and then took him to Europe for Far From Home. But as much as we've seen a globe-hopping Spider-Man, I'm ready to see just the friendly hood. I am ready to see just the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And I know we've seen that so many times before, but Spider-Man is just that character that just breathes New York. He breathes Queens. He breathes web-slinging in the middle of Times Square. All I'm saying is that he needs to stay on that island and we're fine. Number 2, we got us a nice little small itty bitty tease of J. Jonah Jameson at the mid-credit scene of Spider-Man Far From Home. That is not enough. I'm starving here. We need J.K. Simmons to come back for a much bigger role in Spider-Man 3 as the, quite honestly, perfectly cast J. Jonah Jameson. And I understand that you're gonna have to spend some money. This man is now an Oscar winner. He's worth it. We loved seeing him as J. Jonah Jameson in the first 3 Spider-Man movies, which were directed by Sam Raimi. And he also reprised the role in the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon.
I need photos. Photos of Spider-Man.
This is a poetry journal.
Okay, then poems about Spider-Man. And I want them finished before you start. And before you finish, give me some coffee. And the poem should have the following rhyme scheme. A-B-B-A-A-B-B-A-C-D-E-C-D-E. What are you waiting for, Chinese New Year?
So it's not like he hasn't done the role since Raimi. He's dusted it off before. The glimpse that we got of J. Jonah Jameson last year was not enough. We need more JJ, even if it's in a different kind of role. As long as we get more of him, I will be ecstatic. Number 3, we need a top tier Class S villain. And I understand what you're thinking right now. You've been getting classic villains, and you're right. John Watts has given us quite a few classic villains or different variations of classic villains. From the Vulture to the Shocker, the Tinkerer, Mac Gargan. You had a different version of Hydro Man and Sandman. You also had a different version of Molten Man. And you had Mysterio. These are classic, but they're not Class S. And I'm talking about pretty much 3 villains that hit that class. Venom, Green Goblin, and Dr. Octopus. And one of those 3 I feel needs to be in the next Spider-Man movie. We need somebody that not just the hardcore Spider-Man fans know, but that the general public knows because they've seen this character before, so they will be very well invested to see how Spider-Man fares against this huge villain. Number 4, and even though I'm mentioning this, they've actually done a very good job of it in the MCU. Do not make MJ a damsel in distress. This was a trope that we saw all through, like literally all through every single Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. And that was one of the biggest complaints that I would have for those movies. And we actually got it broken a little bit thanks to the first Amazing Spider-Man, but they went right back to it in the second Amazing Spider-Man, and fortunately we have not fallen into that trope here. Yes, she's been in danger before, but it wasn't that damsel in distress kind of situation that we've had. And I don't want them to fall in that same pattern that we've seen before. Because this version of MJ is a much stronger MJ. She's much more independent. She likes to think on her own. She's her own person. And I want that to be preserved. So this one is an addition by omission. Do not bring that tired trope back. And number 5, I want them to explore more spider people. And maybe this is kind of riding on the heels of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but the MCU can totally make this work because there are characters that they can introduce that were not in Spider-Verse. I mean, yes, there's Miles Morales, but there's also Silk, there's Aranya, there's Madam Web. We didn't see any of those characters. They could even bring in Ezekiel, and that way they could have like a Madam Web, Ezekiel kind of elder spider people in that sense. Now, eventually, I would like to see like a dimensional thing where we get to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield team up with Tom Holland. That's a dream situation, but I'm not going there just yet. I would like to see what happens with a current dimension kind of deal. And I think it would be fun to see different variations of characters that we've never seen on screen before. And so when I was going over the list, I was like, why does it feel so familiar? And then it hit me. We saw all this stuff in the 2018 Spider-Man game for the PlayStation 4. It had everything that I literally just mentioned. It's contained entirely within the island of New York, giving you that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man feel. J. Jonah Jameson plays on podcasts throughout the entire campaign, making you feel like you get the character even if it wasn't J.K. Simmons. It has a Class S, top tier, awesome villain at the end of the story. MJ in the game is an independent person. She doesn't need Spider-Man to get her out of every jam. She is an investigative reporter in the game, and sometimes when Spider-Man tries to save her, he ends up making things worse. And so even if they weren't my favorite moments to play in the game, this MJ was so much better than the MJ that we saw in the first 3 Raimi films. And last, it introduced Miles Morales, who's getting his own game later on this year. And I loved so much about this game. I feel like there are elements that can be plucked out of there and put into the MCU Spider-Man to either make it better or, in the MJ case, continue a good line of quality. Because I love some of the aspects of that game, I think the integration of those into a movie would make for an exceptional experience, and I cannot wait to see if I may be right about some of them. So that was just me talking about some things that I want to see in Spider-Man 3. Let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below. You enjoyed this video? Hit that like button, and if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. Share this with your friends, and as always, this is Cameron with Z-Beam Reviews. We'll see you next time.
Stop the presses. Send my wife some flowers and bring me an Advil. What do you mean you don't work for me? You're hired. Now that you're hired, you're fired. Now that you don't work here, we can be friends. Now that we're friends, how come you never call? Some friend you are. God, I love this business.